Welcome back to Birds and Swords. Hey, Alyssa.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Great. It's not as hot in here this time.
I know. I'm like, yeah.
Compared to our last episode. So good to be back. Why don't you tell us your idea for today's episode? We've been bouncing around a lot. I know this one is near and dear to you. So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy, all of them?
Well, the ones that I have knowledge on, I guess, to the best that we can.
We're just going to jump right in today. So I know we talked about how we were going to kind of rhetorically talk about the series. So I wanted to ask first, I guess, why is it called that?
Final Fantasy. So I actually learned many years ago that Square was going to fail as a company, and this was like their final chance of making money. So they created this game as like a last-ditch effort and called it Final Fantasy. And it was a huge success. So it was not the Final Fantasy. But that was a lie.
So I guess the original game was supposed to be this.
Yeah.
They thought they might only be making one game.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to put it, I guess?
Yeah.
So it's like these characters in this story's Final Fantasy.
But it wasn't true. Someone just told me that and I believed it because I thought that was the case. So I looked it up and I can't find that anywhere online. So I think somebody just bullshitted me. And
the company was Squaresoft, I believe.
Yeah, at this time.
It wasn't Square Enix. There was some merger stuff we won't get into. I wanted to throw out there first. So that's interesting. There was only going to be one game because according to Final Fantasy Union, which I believe is a website, and they're active on Reddit, and from what I saw people comment, they're like, you can trust everything they say. So according to Final Fantasy Union, they have information on 134 Final Fantasy games.
134?
134. So that would be, consoles, PCs, remakes, mobile.
That's crazy.
Like everything, probably browser-based little bullshit, probably everything. But still, 134.
That is so much. And yet we're on 16.
So that's why it's funny. Yeah, right. The true numbered one's 16, which we'll get into. But it's interesting that, you mentioned we talked about the Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
134 games later, we still don't know what the end looks like. So that's interesting.
That's crazy. Wow. It's evolved so much.
Yeah. And obviously extremely popular in the community. I mean, people who aren't even gamers have at least heard of what Final Fantasy is, I feel like. So I was thinking about this earlier. Do you think that why it's popular and why it's endured and why it was... I don't know how popular like the NES ones, but do you think that coincides with how it became popular to like Japanese things or anime influence and things like that? Do you think it benefits from that? I'm not trying to devalue Final Fantasy as a series, but do you think its rise in popularity, like the timing of it happening at the same time as people absorbing entertainment from Japan and starting to get into anime, lined up perfectly?
Yeah.
So do you think some of that influence is what made it what it is today is because of that timing? Or do you think the series has enough value that it did it on its own? Does that make sense?
It does. It's hard to say because I do think that the timing of the influence with Japanese gaming had a big impact. But I do think standalone, if this was created...
You think it can stand on its own too?
I think it could, but also it would have lost so much of its art if it was created in America. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard to say. I do think that the trendiness of it had something to do with it, but also it feels like every Final Fantasy game for the most part had some sort of revolutionary factor to it that just pushed the limits of gaming. So it's hard to say.
Because it's super wacky and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like that timing, so to speak, coincides more with 7, like the PS1 era. Is when that, at least semi-mainstream popularity. I don't know what you call that 2/3 of... Because the original was popular and those people were into Japanese things, but the audience wasn't as broad. It was more like cult following type of thing. Or at least I feel like.
I could see that.
I was alive during that period, so I remember it. but it became a little more mainstream like in the PS1 era, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's when 7 came out, and that's one of the most beloved games in the franchise, and we'll get into that. But I feel like as a whole, I think it can be both. Like, can it be both? Like, can it stand on its own two legs and also benefit of the timing in which it came out, because people were just starting to absorb all that Japanese entertainment?
I think for sure both. I do. I think that it could have stood on its own two legs just with how great the games were, but the intrigue that was coming in for Japanese games and culture at the same time just like propelled it.
Sure. Yeah. I want to preface by saying Alyssa's played way more Final Fantasy than I have, so we'll be open and transparent about that. I've played the original 7, probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years out. It wasn't like at launch or anything like that. I did play it in the PS1 era, like before I had a PS2. So I played the original 7. I've played Remake. I've played half of Rebirth up to a certain boss battle that it's still on. And then I played a little bit of whatever the Super Nintendo one was. I think it's Final Fantasy 3 was the first one on Super Nintendo.
It's 3 or 4, one of the two.
Yeah, it's like the top down, like A Link to the Past is kind of what it looks like, but it's turn-based battle and all that good stuff. So I haven't played a ton of them. I've played spot things or seen things on YouTube or watched CGI stuff, because they were always really good at the CGI of like 10. I know 10's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
9, 8. I really haven't paid attention to the online ones. So you've played way more. You've played everything basically PS1 to now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or every numbered title.
Most of them, yeah. And I played some of like the spin-offs, like the Crystal Chronicles.
Yeah. We were talking about earlier, World of Final Fantasy has like little chibi characters. There's just so many
with the rhythm.
Yeah, music games. Yeah, they've just done everything. So you're the expert, and you wanted to bring up what makes a Final Fantasy game a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yes, I did want to talk about that.
What makes it unique? Yeah.
Because I think it's really incredible that this series, every game that comes out is its entirely own game, but there are things that tie it together that make it feel Final Fantasy. Wow.
Final Sanity.
I am on my Final Sanity.
Well, actually, before you go on, that brings up a good point, because we probably need to preface, if anybody's listening that hasn't gotten into those games, that every game is a unique and different game with different characters. There are some sequels, and we'll get into that too. But each like unique numbered title is a unique story with a beginning, middle, end. Yeah. And you don't see any carryover other than worldly things like Moogles, chocobos. Yeah. So mounts and merchants. Mounts and merchants. So I want to put that out there. That out there first, if you haven't played all the games.
Yeah, and that's what's really great is you can jump into Final Fantasy at any time and just be a new fan and join into the cult. It's great. But what makes it Final Fantasy? There's just certain elements that really tie these games together, and some of them are going to be simple things like spell names. There's always a character named Sid. There's chocobos, Moogles. A lot of the summons are the same.
Elixirs.
Yes. Crystals, items, monsters. But more than anything, I think what makes Final Fantasy is the really strong narrative-based gameplay that you go through. Like, it is very story-driven. And on top of that, it has a very unique soundtrack. And every Final Fantasy has a different... I don't know anything about music, so I'll do my best. It's different, but the same. Yeah. Like, it has the same, like, theme or, like, general sound to it, but each Final Fantasy, it's always like that harp you hear when it opens up.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah, but it's a different tune.
Yeah, the best way to explain it is, like, you know it when you hear it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they have, like, traveling symphony, like, coming to a city near you. Yeah.
It's just beautiful. I think Final Fantasy has just the most incredible soundtrack, or one of them, or many of them. I don't know. But I think it just really all ties together that you have all these crazy, unique stories and adventures, but there's these elements that tie it together that when you turn it on, you have that comfortability of knowing you're playing a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I really love it.
It's like the atmosphere and the environment or something.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. It's one of those, you know, when you see it. But a lot of it's the charm of, those things I mentioned, like Moogles and chocobos and goofy,
I love chocobos.
Goofy voice acting. And
best design they ever did was those big mount birds.
those big mount birds.
Yeah.
Do they have do you want to talk about chocobos real quick? Should we transition on?
Yeah.
Do they have a origin story? Does the chocobo have an origin story?
No,
Do we
I don't know
why they...
I wonder what game they first showed up in, but man, the best chocobos are probably in the newest game of 16 because there's so many, but they're just the best freaking birds. They're bird horses. They look like big old yellow chickens and you ride them around. And whoever made that design.
Are they mounts in 16?
Yeah.
They are mounts?
They're mounts in most games. I think all the games that I've played that had chocobos, you were able to mount them because it's the mount.
The first game that they appeared in was actually Final Fantasy II, 1988.
Final Fantasy II?
Chocobos have been kicking it since 1988.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. The designers knew immediately these birds.
Yeah, we need to get a good remembrance of what they look like. Anyway, a little off tangent. I'm sure we'll talk more about chocobos too.
Yeah, huge fan.
Same. Even though I haven't played as many of the games as you, I do feel like there's a certain charm, the atmosphere, the whimsy.
Yeah.
Of playing a Final Fantasy game. And I think a lot of that comes through with how they handle their characters.
Yes.
Character progression. You love a lot of the characters because they're so goofy. And I don't know if that's a
They're
different
very
culture's
eccentric.
humor. Yeah.
Very eccentric, very huge personalities, very different from one another, which is my issue with the newest game, which I'll get into later. But these characters are just their design is really colorful, unique, extravagant. Their personalities eccentric, exciting. They're just every game, I don't know, they just create whole new worlds and characters.
Everybody's beautiful.
Everyone's beautiful.
Everybody's beautiful. And if they're not, they're really funny or something.
Yeah.
You love them anyway.
I guess what's also really cool is to see how much the Final Fantasy genre and games have changed over the years. Because from the first one, this top-down game, turn-based, very pixelated. I don't know, 8-bit. Is that what I'm looking for?
Yeah, NES 8-bit.
Yeah,
that's where it debuted. Yeah.
Right. So all the way to now, where these graphics and gameplay is very action-based and different. I just wanted to go over kind of the evolution of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it is way different. And
yeah.
That was a big, I'm sure you'll mention it, but that was a big risk when they switched gameplay.
Big risk. So they were top down for most of the series and turn-based for almost the entire series until, I believe, Final Fantasy 12.
So 10 is turn-based?
Yes,
that's
completely
your favorite?
turn-based.
That's
I
turn-based?
loved 10.
Okay.
12, they switched over to something called Gambits, where you kind of set up how you want your characters to act in battle. A lot of people really hated it. I loved it. You just have to be strategic with it.
I've heard the phrase.
Yeah. It's just essentially pre-commanding your characters what to do.
Okay. It's more like a strategy game then. Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it, but I also understood why Final Fantasy fans were upset because turn-based was king back then. And since then, I would love for Final Fantasy to go back to turn-based. And they considered it with 13, but they were kind of no, just press A.
That's interesting. I bet they will at some point.
I hope so. I miss it.
They'll make a numbered title, official numbered title, full turn-based game.
I miss it so much. I think
cool.
that they're losing their...
So when did it switch? Do we know?
12, I think it was. Yeah.
Not a switch, more of a transition.
Yeah. They had their first soundtrack in Final Fantasy VIII. So their first music was put into 8 on the PlayStation 1, which I thought they have a beautiful soundtrack. And I remember so vividly the game opening with just the waves crashing in and the music comes in with the waves. They did it beautifully.
So what do you mean by soundtracks? So
they added music. Like
real recorded music?
Yeah, not like the 8-bit, do-do-do-do.
So what did 7 have?
Same do-do-do-do-do.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. That's what the internet told me anyway.
Yeah.
And that's how I remember it. But they made a big deal out of 8 having a soundtrack.
Yeah. I mean, PS1 is when we first went to CD discs. So that was their first video games, at least their first ability to actually have real music on there.
Yeah.
So I guess with 7. Yeah. So, yeah.
And it was shortly after that with 10 that they did voice acting for the first time.
Okay.
And that will always live rent-free in my brain when Tidus laughs and he goes, ha, 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 ha.
I have seen that.
Yep. So 10 had the voice acting. I mean, they did online for the first time with 11, which was really hit or miss. Some people loved it. Some people
PS2?
didn't. Yeah, that was
You had to have
PlayStation
that
2.
big, like chunky network adapter
Yeah.
that you like plugged in the back and plugged your phone cable
Yup.
into, or your phone line into.
And I guess 11, if you're counting that one, was obviously before 12. That was real-time battle instead of turn-based. So, but a lot of people don't count it because a lot of people didn't play it.
So what was the last one on PS2? The first one on PS3 was like the Lightning ones, right?
Yeah, so then 12 was the last one on PlayStation 2, which they remade on the PlayStation 4 as the Zodiac Age, which I loved.
Zodiac Age, I've heard of that.
Yeah, they
That's
just...
really 12?
Yeah.
Well, it's called Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac Age, I think.
Essentially, it just opens up more options for your characters for their builds.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was just crazy to see how much, like, that transition from, like, true turn-based, almost looking like a Pokemon game in, like, the originals to, like, these crazy action sequences. It's just, it feels like a totally different genre, but still feels Final Fantasy. It's so unique.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, you didn't bring us from PS3 to now, did you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
So 13 started true, like, action.
Yeah, it was, they made it feel turn-based, but it was really just like press one button with 13. 14 was online again. And then 15 was when they really switched to action. So that one was like combo-based almost, kind of not, like Kingdom Hearts more.
That one's like really modern. Like,
Yeah.
they lean into the driving cars around and hanging out in the city.
Which is how 7 was. 7 was modern, but it was like the action of the gameplay of like the battles. It was like Kingdom Hearts where you like press triangle to attack and this for item, but it was almost there. And then with 16, it was like combos where like kind of like Devil May Cry, but PlayStation 2 Devil May Cry, not quite there. So I think they're working their way up to being a really good like hack and slash combo build game, but right now it's like in that awkward teenage phase.
So you played Remake, right?
Yeah, the first one.
So how does that combat compare to 16, since I guess those are the closest release, or 15? Is it about the same?
No, not at all, but I enjoy it more. It has a lot more strategy than 16. So like you still have to take in consideration like the weaknesses of enemies and such, whereas 16 is just like slash.
Yeah.
Hit them as hard as you can.
God of War. Well,
Yeah.
no, God of War is always it's more complex than people think it is. or
Yeah.
what it looks like.
It's like old Devil May Cry, like Devil May Cry 2, 1 or 2, where it's just like slash away, but great graphics.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get a lot of hate for that because people loved 16, but I have a lot of hate for 16, and we'll get into that
Okay.
later.
The first Final Fantasy, I didn't mention this, came out in Japan on the family computer. So whatever.
What does that mean?
Whatever, it's just whatever you got. Hopefully it ran it, like those old Apple II computers. So it came out in Japan on the family computer in 1987. It hit North America in 1990, so it didn't come to the States for 3 more years. But still, we're talking almost 40 years ago.
Wow.
So you think that gameplay would have evolved a little over that time?
It only makes sense.
But again, you could, I mean, it was turn-based almost 40 years ago. And like you
And they
said, we
re-released it.
We could still do that.
Yeah. Like several times. You can
Yeah.
play it on your phone now and stuff.
The first Final Fantasy?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Because I know that Matt had it on his Switch for a while.
Yeah. And it was on a lot of those, like when they released the minis and stuff.
Yeah.
Like Final Fantasy 2 is on one of them, I think. So
They're hard. The old ones are so hard. I watched Matt play the first one. No, not for me.
You're like, no.
No.
No, I'll just watch a YouTube walkthrough.
Yeah.
And even with the old games, the writing was really good. Like some of it was cheesy.
Yeah.
Like you go back, you can like, yeah, that's Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
You know, even all the way back then. Let's take a break. You ready for a break? You want to go on a break?
Break.
Play with the kitten?
Yeah.
We'll come back and we're going to, I've got some did you know facts that I want to read off, and then we're going to get into some of the games and characters and things like that.
Woo.
All right. We will see you right after the break.
You are listening to Micah and Alyssa on Birds and Swords. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and smash that like button.
Looking to add to your outfit or home in a sustainable way? Look no further than Healthy Hemp Gear. Now partnered with Birds and Swords to bring you even closer to perfect solutions for your day-to-day life. Use code BNS, that's B&S, to get 15% off each order of hemp apparel and home goods, just for being an awesome listener. Go to healthyhempgear.com today to check out apparel that appreciates the earth and you.
Welcome back to Birds and Swords.
Final Fantasy.
Woo!
Here we go. I got some facts. I got some did you knows. So I want to see if you or anybody listening heard some of these. So they're kind of interesting. I'm getting them straight off of the Final Fantasy wiki, which I can trust. Okay, so game facts. Let's see if you knew any of these. Some of them are kind of old school.
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
This is interesting, though. In all versions of Final Fantasy, except for the English NES version, so I'm guessing we're just talking about Final Fantasy 1 here, a gravestone in Elfheim reads, "Here lies Link," a reference to Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda.
Was that a question or a fact?
No, that's a fact.
Okay. I thought I was supposed to...
No.
Okay.
These are just...
I was like, no, that's actually amazing. I did not know that at all.
These are just did you knows.
Okay.
You know...
I thought you were asking me a question and
nothing is required of you. You're fine.
That is really, really, really cool, though.
The original Final Fantasy is available on 17 different platforms.
Which ones?
They're not listed. I told you that earlier.
I know. That's why I did
What
that.
an asshole. Asshole. So thanks for that. But 17 different platforms. So your phone is one of those, and then 16 other ones.
Definitely.
They've changed HP and damage outputs. When did you said you started playing with 7, right? So let's go to 7. Final Fantasy 7 is the highest selling game in the entire series with over 18 million copies sold. That's a lot. Those are like Call of Duty numbers.
That's crazy.
Final Fantasy VII's development team was historically largest in its time and included Hollywood CG artists that worked on movies such as Jurassic Park and Terminator 2.
What?
I thought that was really interesting
That's
too.
so cool.
It was originally planned for SNES. I think I've heard this before, but it would have taken place in the real world New York City. I hadn't heard that part of it, but I had heard that it was originally planned for the SNES and that something got super delayed and ended up hitting on the PS1, which changed it quite a bit. Final Fantasy VII, we actually talked about this, I don't know if it was off air, was the first game in the main series that was in a modern style setting, including decidedly modern technology such as cars, motorcycles, and televisions.
Oh, yeah. And it was like the first 3D, like three-dimensional, their little...
Yeah, kind of, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
They have like barbell arms or whatever you call it. Final Fantasy VII, first game to feature summons.
Oh, wow.
Love summons.
Yeah, huge part of the games for me.
It's the first Final Fantasy game without flan.
Without flan?
Flan, yeah, like the dessert or whatever. It's like an HP thing, right?
They must come back because those are monsters in the other games.
They're monsters?
Well, I thought...
I can click on flan. Let's see what it is.
Yeah, it was a monster.
Flan was like a dessert. Flan. No, yeah, you're right. The recurrent enemy.
Yeah, they must have brought it back.
It's got a genus and an etymology. If it's got an etymology, it's an insect. Anyway, let's get off there. So I was definitely wrong about the flan thing.
You're like, it's a dessert.
Oops, isn't it?
It is, I'm pretty sure, but in Final Fantasy, it's an enemy.
Someone chime in.
Enemy dessert.
It's a dessert.
Desserts are my enemy.
I think it's a Mexican dessert. What about Final Fantasy X? That's your favorite, right? Final Fantasy X is the first game in the series with voice acting, which you said. Second game in the main series to do away with character levels. So that game you didn't level up.
Yeah, you did. Oh, well, yes and no. They had a different system, so I see what they mean. It was like a spear system that you could spend on level up attributes, but you didn't like level 2, level 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You expand your skills and whatnot. Final Fantasy X is also, this is a good one. Final Fantasy X is the last single-player game in the main series to allow the player to name the main character.
Oh, everyone still called him Tidus.
Is that what you did? So you could change the name?
Yeah, so they like suggest Tidus, which most people took, but you could change it. Well, I don't want to say most people. I'm the only one I knew in my school that played that game. But
the older Zelda games, I think everything like Nintendo 64 and back, you could rename Link.
Yeah, do you remember?
Weird to think about.
You ever see it where they like rename him my dude?
Yeah.
So
hello,
good.
my dude. It makes the entire game totally chill.
Right.
Final Fantasy X was originally planned to include online elements, but they didn't get to that apparently.
Oh no, Blitzball.
Is that what the online was going to be?
I'm assuming.
Let's see. So what about 10-2? Did you play 10-2? Did you like 10-2?
I enjoyed it, but I have mixed feelings because I didn't like that it was the sequel to 10 because it was like so bratty, like just like lame, but a standalone game, really enjoyed it.
It's the only game in the series to have an all-female playable cast.
I do like that a lot. You could also dress them up like little dolls in their skimpy little outfits.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course.
It was fun. It was cute. I enjoyed it. There was like singing and stuff. It was weird. It was like playing a K-pop band with guns. So, like, I don't know how else to explain it.
Final Fantasy 13 was actually the fastest selling game in the series at the time of its release, having sold over 1.7 million copies in the first 2 weeks.
It was good. The story was amazing.
I feel like there was a big lag in time there because there was a console generation that was the first one on PS3 and 360. That did come out on 360, right? I think that was the first game that came out on Xbox.
Yeah.
Or the first Final Fantasy game to come out on Xbox.
I believe so. I think you're absolutely right.
Which, that was a big deal. Because it was
female protagonist.
Yep.
Which was amazing.
Yep. Type O, let's see. I don't have anything on 16. It's not updated with anything on 16. So there's some interesting did you knows. I'm sure there's more, but at least some headliners. Oh my God, the cat is going nuts. I hope he showed up on the mic. Look at
Meow.
him. He's so crazy.
He's being absolutely nuts right now. He's trying to eat your light.
He's like, Final Fantasy!
I love Final Fantasy!
All into it. All right, what do we got next? What are we going to get into?
Gosh. We kind of talked about sequels a little bit, so I guess we can dive into that.
Yeah.
10-2, like I said, K-pop with guns. Well, I guess it would be J-pop, and that's whatever. But 13,
I know what you mean.
Both sequels for 13 I did not enjoy. I felt like 13-2 was like this. I think that was the one with like the weird time traveling. It was just so weird. It was super weird. The gameplay didn't feel any more fun. It felt like knockoff Pokemon. It was just weird. And then Lightning Returns, I barely remember. I feel like it was a really short game.
That's the third one?
Yeah.
Is that the only game with 2 sequels? I think it is.
So 7 has a whole lot going on, which we can get. So 7 has 7, and then Dirge of Cerberus, which was where you play as Vincent, and it's a third-person shooter. And I always remember this moment.
What platform is that on?
PlayStation 2.
Really? Okay.
I always remember this when I bought it because I took it up at GameStop and the guy at the register was like, this isn't like other Final Fantasy games. And I was like, okay. And I took it home and he was freaking right. It was a third-person shooter, but I enjoyed it, but it was also way darker than any Final Fantasy I'd played because Vincent has a really dark backstory. So there's like kids getting kidnapped and stuff, and he's a vampire, and his mommy issues. So there was that.
What's a dirge? You didn't. They didn't reveal it.
I didn't question it.
They didn't reveal what a
Seems
dirge.
like I don't. And then they also did a prequel, Crisis Core, which was
a lot of people love Crisis Core.
I sobbed.
That got a remake recently.
Yes, very recently.
Yeah.
I think they remade it for PlayStation 4 or 5. And it was phenomenal. Absolutely amazing game. And that you play as Cloud's best friend, Zach, when he was part of, what's the military's name?
The
Shinra?
Shinra, yeah. Shinra Corp.
Yeah, so when he was with Shinra, you play as his best friend, Zach. And it's just an incredible story. Great gameplay. I loved it. And then they also had a movie, which was Advent Children. I really liked it.
Watched it. Where can you watch that?
I think I have it if you want to watch it.
Physically hand it to
you? Yeah, it's a Blu-ray.
I feel like I've never seen it streaming anywhere.
I don't think so either. It's very niche, obviously, but I enjoyed it.
I'd watch it though, and I haven't still.
It's like about a bunch of diseased kids, and then Cloud like saves them.
What are they diseased with?
It's like a whole thing. You find out like that's like the point of the movie.
That's part of the reveal.
Well, like, why am I ill? And then Cloud gets the illness, and then like these 3 like fuckboys are trying to bring back Sephiroth. It's a whole ordeal.
Damn.
But it's really good, and like they bring a lot. Like Tifa has an incredible fight scene in the movie that I will remember for the rest of my life in the church where like Aerith plants the flowers and stuff.
Oh yeah,
just really amazing. So I love that. But
wait, when did that come out? Do you know? Or
I was like in middle school, I think.
So early 2000s or
very
something?
early 2000s.
Okay.
But it was really good.
Yeah, and the CGI was probably like groundbreaking at the time because they were always good at that.
So I went back before doing this episode and kind of looked at some scenes. It holds up pretty well. Yeah. So it's just like feels like one long cutscene from one like the newer games. It's really well done. Yeah. But that takes me into other Final Fantasy movies. We had 2 of them from 15. It was Brotherhood and Kingsglaive.
Kingsglaive, I've heard that name, but I didn't know those were associated with 15.
Yeah, well, Kingsglaive came with like the collector's edition or whatever, so I think I watched that. Don't really remember it. Brotherhood, I didn't know about. Good. It was just like on a list of movies for Final Fantasy. And then Spirits Within, I remember very well. This was a movie on the PSP, PlayStation Portable.
Only?
Yes.
Like exclusive?
As far as I know, I've never found it anywhere else.
That's where you watched it?
That's where I watched it. Wow. I don't know if it was anywhere else. Maybe, probably.
That's pretty epic.
It was horrible.
Watch this on my PSP.
It was like this sci-fi thing about these like people on a spaceship and these like aliens took over and like killed them. It was really not Final Fantasy. There was no fantasy. It was all sci-fi. So I really did not enjoy that.
It's all final.
All final, no fantasy. So did not enjoy that. Do not recommend on that at all. Also on my PSP, I played Dissidia, which was really fun.
Yeah, people like that.
Yeah.
Sure. Was it only on PSP? I felt like that was made its way to the DS or
They
something.
remade it for like the PlayStation 4, I think. So it was like a remake. But I played it on the PSP and really enjoyed it because they brought together like all your favorite characters to fight alongside each other. It was really cool.
From multiple games?
Yeah. It was like across the board. Even like the hero from the first game is in it. And it's kind of about him because there wasn't a whole lot of story. So they kind of make it about him in Dissidia. Because he's like, wow, you guys are all so well-rounded. I don't know anything about myself. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. But I guess...
I didn't even know you had a PSP.
I loved my PSP.
Really?
I had like South Park movies on it.
That's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, it was a really good system. Yeah. With the Vita just failed us bad.
With a bunch of Final Fantasy games on it.
Yeah.
You know, I said I haven't played as many as you. 7 is still, I guess, my favorite. Or I think
the first you played?
Yeah.
Yeah. First and favorite.
Because even like the old retro ones like Final Fantasy 3 or whichever one I played later. So I played 7 a couple years after it came out on PS1. Really liked it, but for some reason didn't go back and play the other ones that came out on PS1 or even PS2. So I didn't play another one until Remake.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It's like a 20-year layoff.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
Shame on me.
10 is what got me into it.
Yeah.
I found it at GameStop and I liked the cover art.
Well, do you like that one most because it's characters?
Yeah, the characters and the gameplay, the story, I love it. It's like you literally fight God. Like
take him on.
Like you literally it's just the story is incredible. You like marry this weird gross priest guy who's all about God, and then you have to get away from him, and then you have to go fight God, and like God is called sin, and he punishes you for pretty much existing, which is relevant.
Yeah.
And it's just, and then there's like this rift between people who worship the God and people who are trying to build technology to fight God, and it's just really like...
So God is the bad guy and it's not a physical entity?
He is.
Oh, he is.
So he just basically like comes...
So it's Jesus.
Like he shows up, he's like this big whale, and he shows up he shows up to different places and just destroys them and then leaves. And he's called Sin because he just punishes you for being alive, pretty much. So I love it. The story is incredible. Best love story I've ever experienced in a video game. The two protagonists that fall in love with each other. I sob every time I play the game because I just love them both. Great plot twist. Amazing characters. I love 10. And the gameplay with the turn-based is really great. The character design. Lulu has huge boobs. And
Good for her.
good for her.
Way to go.
Yay.
There's plenty of that.
So, and Waka, one of the characters that you play as, is the same voice actor as Jake the dog from Adventure Time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same guy.
Yeah, that dude's good.
Yeah. So play it.
Go play it.
Go play it. It's
That's reason
fantastic.
enough to go play it.
Yeah.
So do you think, who's your favorite character in the Final Fantasy series then? Is it the characters that are in 10?
Man. No, it's Tifa.
It's Tifa?
It's gotta be Tifa.
Every Final Fantasy character.
It's gotta be Tifa. She's such a baddie. She's
Yeah,
so
but she's
cool.
still I feel like she's kind of generic as far as Final Fantasy characters go,
That's
though.
true. I guess
Like, she is a badass. You're
Yeah.
not wrong. You're not wrong. But maybe it's just the way they've done her. And her story arcs have been okay.
Yeah.
Because they've changed them a little bit in the remake, but
Man.
I still feel like she's kind of the generic.
I guess as far as characters, like actual, like the depth of them, I would say Riku from Final Fantasy X.
Is the blonde one?
She's got like the orange hair with the ponytail.
Okay.
I think that she just has so much growth as her character, and she's so fun and bubbly, and she just like sees some shit and learns from it.
Lives her life.
Yeah, I really like her a lot. So, and she gets super cool in the second game. She's pretty much just in a bikini.
Yeah. What about the best villain?
Best villain?
Is it Sephiroth? It's got to be Sephiroth, right?
Sephiroth has to take the cake.
I mean, he's the most iconic, and it's for good reason, because the way they handle him is like it's weird because he's like pure evil, but sometimes you like agree with him.
Yeah.
Kind of like side with him, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes him, puts him like over the edge as far as the villain stuff, because they do a good job of writing him to where you
and his backstory is
side
so
with him and
crazy.
feel okay about it, even though he's like pure evil.
Yeah, when you play Crisis Core, like you fight alongside him because he starts as a good guy, and you just like learn to love him. You're like, he's a hero.
Yeah.
But little do you know, he's gonna burn shit down. So, I think I would have to agree. I don't know anybody that would disagree. I think that he is such an iconic villain across the board of villains for video games.
Yeah, he's on like the Mount Rushmore of video game villains. Sephiroth, his sword sticking out 17 miles.
That's so true. When you fight him in Kingdom, it's just like Sephiroth, Sephiroth.
Dude, he totally does. That fight is so hard.
I don't know if I've ever beat him.
I don't know if I did either. Actually, I remember looking it up, and the reward wasn't that great. I don't even know what you
It's
get.
just bragging rights, is
But
what it is.
Yeah, it puts you on a circle platform, and one swipe of his sword covers like 90% of the area. So you've just got to be like airborne at the right time. Yeah, so hard.
Yeah.
So hard. It's cool that I guess we could talk about that. They segued Final Fantasy characters right into Kingdom Hearts. It was done by Square Enix. But there was enough fanfare there to include them.
Yeah.
And I think Kingdom Hearts 2 compared to Kingdom Hearts 3, 2 is better for it because there's no Final Fantasy characters in 3, right?
No, none. It was disappointing.
Boo.
I was excited to see some.
I think there were Moogles, but that was it.
Yeah.
Because you still have to go to the shops. But
yeah.
that's it.
Well, I guess I will end on the note of talking about the latest game.
Ooh, is it amazing?
It was pretty...
Let's go ahead and rip it apart. I'm going to look up its Metacritic.
Okay, so I have an unpopular opinion. I know everybody loved Final Fantasy 16, and there are elements about it that I really thoroughly enjoyed. I think that Square Enix spent their whole budget on the boss battles, which is amazing because the boss battles are phenomenal, the best in the series. I think the way they handle the summons, which are called icons, are incredible. Those battles are insane. The final fight in the game was crazy.
Do you get a lot of summons?
You become a summon.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you like turn into Ifrit.
But Oh, it's just Ifrit?
Yeah, but then
That's a recurring summon, right?
Yeah, but then you like befriend others who become summons, like Shiva, and you also fight others who become summons. So it's like Bahamut and stuff, which is just incredible. The best
it
part
ends
of the
up
game.
like huge monster on monster battles.
Crazy. And like
That's
when I
cool.
tell you they spent their whole budget on it, I'm not shitting you. It is gorgeous and incredible and nothing but action. Loved it. That is about 10% of the game. The other 90% is just so fucking boring. And the characters are so bland. Like, it just feels like they they take all your favorite characters, all your favorite woman characters and create this girl. And you think she's going to be incredible. No, she's like a muddy, sloppy version of all of them. Just really bland and boring. Just like, instead of creating a rainbow, it was brown. And that's what they did.
bow.
That's what they did with like all the protagonist Clive. It feels like what they wanted to do with Noctis and 15, but they didn't. And it's just like, it just was really, all the characters were really miss. And the side quests, the fetch quests were so freaking annoying and boring. I hated the side quests.
So is it open world or is it open
They make you
areas?
feel like it's open world.
Open areas,
And the side quests, yeah, sure, but it's just so tedious and annoying. But the main story and the main plot, phenomenal. Loved it. But that's, like I said, about 10% of the game. So I was really disappointed that they couldn't just like invest more into what made the game great, which was like the summons.
So were they trying to, with the open world stuff, do you think the game was rushed or you feel they were being lazy or do you feel...
I feel like they invested all of their time and efforts into like the boss battles and then told like their interns to like create fetch quests. Like they were like, here. And like you can feel it too, because like when you're in the world, it's very bland. Very like so the cutscenes have these beautiful, huge cities that are just covered in like crystals and what makes Final Fantasy beautiful. But then you like play the quests in these like bland cornfields, and it's all fields, all the same. And like the graphics when you're playing the side quests are like, it feels like almost a PlayStation 3 game. Just like you feel like you regressed. But then on the main plot, when you're like going against the main characters, it feels like, oh my gosh, we're way ahead of our time. So I feel like the interns had to take over the side quest or something.
You ready for the meta scores?
What is it?
The meta score, so the Metacritic official score is an 87, which is extremely high. The user score is an 8.1, which is also pretty high.
I knew it was an unpopular opinion I had.
Yeah. Yep.
And also, I will keep going. I feel like the gameplay feels like Devil May Cry 1 or 2, like I said earlier. It's like this like weird teenage phase of like the in-between of learning what a hack and slash is and how to do combos and stuff. Like there's no strategy like old Final Fantasies, but there's not really combos either.
This person says it's lacking a bit of the weird. Did you feel that way as well?
Yeah.
Like the Final Fantasy goofy weirdness?
It's missing that entirely.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of chocobos, so I do give it a point for that.
But you said they die.
A lot of birder, for sure.
So how they die? They're in combat?
Yeah, because they're like war horses, so they get like shot and like trampled and
Their
killed
blood.
and like castles fall.
Oh,
on
you
them.
said this one was mature too, I think.
Yeah. Which also, I'll keep going because it feels like, because this was like not the first mature rated game, I stand corrected on my last one, but the first main like numbered Final Fantasy
Should be
that's
mature.
And it feels like, you know, like when you like let a small child say fuck, like they just do it because they can.
Yeah, they don't
That's
know.
what this game was. It was just like they were just like trying to throw it in there because they could now. So like the swearing felt really unnatural and forced.
How old are the characters?
You actually play through the protagonist's pretty much whole life from like 12 on, which is cool.
On what, till he's like 85 and dies?
No, till he's like in his 40s, I think.
Okay.
So like you play most of his like adult life.
Yeah, till he
Which is really
retires.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, until he retires. Yeah. So it is really cool, but it feels forced with the swearing, and I don't know. It just feels like awkward. Like I can do it, so I will.
And this isn't like a time and place where you were mentally we're ruling that out completely. Hell, sometimes you're just not into stuff because of whatever you got going on or something. Is there any of that going on?
I actually feel like it's possible that I had a hard time with this game because I played it right after Baldur's Gate. Yeah. And Baldur's Gate is another medieval game that was just like above and beyond in every possible way. So I went from this incredible 10 out of 10 game to another medieval game. And Final Fantasy isn't supposed to feel medieval to me ever. And so when I played it, I was like, wow, it's like a dumbed down version of Baldur's Gate where I don't make decisions and the graphics suck. So that could definitely be why.
Yeah.
It could have totally been the timing. Yep. But I stand by my opinions.
Yeah. No, yeah, I understand that. But
yeah,
that definitely happens. That's happened with me before.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about it in the process of whatever I played before that, so that's interesting. But sometimes you're just not in the headspace for whatever type of game it is. That happens to me all the time. Like, I'm going to play College Football 25, and I'll boot it up, and I'm like, you know what? Nah.
Yeah.
But there's been plenty of times where I've been playing something, and I've probably felt like that and just pushed through it anyway and probably didn't enjoy it as much.
Yeah, I've definitely had that before. And this was a game that I just pushed through because I was playing through it. But I will say the boss battles, again, some of the best, and for sure the best in Final Fantasy history, these boss battles.
Yeah. So it's really good at this one thing, but the rest of it you didn't.
Yeah, right.
Well,
I just didn't give a shit about the characters, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's a big deal and something they're usually really good at.
Yeah, so. It was like they were not quirky and eccentric, and like their character designs were really boring, and it just felt like the girl looked like Tifa. She looked like Tifa. Same hair, same general personality. It was like, can we change it up a little bit?
Maybe they're running out of ideas. I wonder how many like party protagonists there's been across the series.
Right.
You know, maybe they're running out of archetypes.
Yeah. So, but I still enjoyed it. Still loved it. Can't wait for the next Final Fantasy.
17. Here's to 17. Whenever that is.
Almost of legal age.
Yeah. Let's talk about the online ones really quick. I have not played the online ones. I think there's just been 2 like true online ones, right? 11 and 14, at least in our modern era of enough people having access to those. Yeah. And you've played quite a bit of 14, right?
Yeah, not any of the expansions, but Zach and I made it to almost the end of the main quest for 14. So
and you like that, I feel like.
We had a ton of fun. It was just really expensive, and then it gets kind of tedious when you're just like constantly building and crafting and sewing and doing the same shit over and over. Yeah. A lot like World of Warcraft, but like a little bit more laid back, less intensive. Like it's okay if you take a break. You're not going to lose all this stuff. But we had a really good time, and the community was really like welcoming, non-toxic. Everybody was so friendly. When my first day, a bunch of people gave me a ton of gear and items. Like,
yeah, because I feel like you guys probably jumped in late.
Very late, years late. Yeah. Sure, yeah. But just really fun community, really fun world. But it did get kind of boring after a little
So does it still have that Final Fantasy charm where you can tell you're playing Final Fantasy?
I think I would say more so than 16. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because it just has that like fantastical feel of like all these magic and like and you can play as the bunny people of the Viera. So that was important to me.
And you can have chocobos, right?
Yeah.
Customize it? Maybe?
Well, you can like buy stuff for it. I don't know about customize, but you could buy like different outfits.
In Rebirth, which is the new remake that I've played a little over half of that you haven't played any.
I haven't played any Rebirth.
You can have chocobos. I think I sent you a couple screenshots.
Well, they were standing in the cave.
Yeah, there's some customization. It's pretty light. Like I think you can. Well, in order to get like a different color, you have to like catch a different one, but you're allowed to do that. So you can kind of get a different color one. But then you can buy like headpieces and then saddles and boots. What do you call boots?
Little booties?
Little boots, greaves,
aww,
gauntlets, whatever. So they have like 3 armor pieces that you can at least customize them a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like any of the games you can customize chocobos really. Like that's as far as it's gone.
Yeah.
But in 14, it's not like that, I guess, in the online.
No, I mean you can buy different like saddles and stuff, but I guess there are different outfits, but you can't customize the chocobo itself.
Yeah,
I don't
most of them are yellow.
Buy different because like they're called mounts, and you can buy different mounts. So instead of a chocobo, you could have like a dragon or something. So there's like different colored chocobos and stuff. Yeah. but it's like all with real people money, and I don't do that.
Nope. They're mostly yellow, I feel like, across most of the games.
I feel like it's time. It's 2024. The graphics are amazing. It's time to start making them look like cockatiels. Like I want a chocobo that looks like Laszlo.
Yeah, with some
Like
white
with all the
on
markings.
Yeah, some red on the cheeks, maybe.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah.
So give it. Give it. I'm a loyal fan, and I'm asking nicely.
Deep dive customization on the chocobo.
Yes.
People would love that. I guarantee. Guarantee it.
Flamingo. Think of that. Pink.
Or even looking like a flamingo would be funny, but with like a chocobo head.
Oh my gosh.
So where would you put Final Fantasy on your like franchises list? It's probably on your Mount Rushmore. Is it like it's in your like top
there.
3?
I feel like it's probably like right under Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda probably is. Gosh, I don't know if I can do this right now. I feel like because I have to think about it. It's up there. It's top 5 for sure. Yeah. Top 3 probably. It's just so good. I love Final Fantasy.
You'd put it ahead of Devil May Cry series?
I would, yeah. I love Devil May Cry, but I think Final Fantasy takes the cake. But the road they're taking, they're going to start losing traction pretty soon. So,
well, not according to everyone else.
Just me. Just me. Well, I'm also one of those like jaded players that misses the turn-based. Even though I was the only welcoming one with 12 when they went to action-based, I am really jaded. I want that turn-based back. It's hard to find turn-based games now.
Yeah, it's like the 3rd time we brought it up.
Yeah.
I hope they do it.
Yeah.
Just a true turn-based Final Fantasy 17 turn-based.
Yeah, or just give me the option even. Just be like, you want to play this turn-based? You can.
That'd be hard to do, I feel like.
Well, that's kind of what they did.
You'd have to make 2 games, 2 battle systems.
I think they did that with like 13. You had the option of like turn-based. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I don't know. Either way, super up there for me.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish I've played more, but I have a hard time like going back and trying to find that being the thing that I would choose to go back and play. There's so many things that I would rather go back and play.
That's fair.
It's mean.
That's fair. I think you should play 10.
I should play 10. So can I play 10 on my PS5?
Yeah, they remade it on the 4. So,
yeah.
And the graphics are beautiful. The voice acting is the same, so be ready for that.
Woo.
It's amazing, though. Fight God.
It's been fun talking about Final Fantasy. So many, such a staple in video games. So many characters. I just think about even though I haven't played them, like so many of the heroes and characters that we've got to represent. And just the overall magic of it, I think, is what I take away when I play the games is, like we've talked about earlier, you just know that you're playing a Final Fantasy game. Anything else on Final Fantasy?
No, I love it.
Do you think that we're going to see in our lifetime its last game?
No.
You think they'll go on for, we'll see
I think as long
Final Fantasy 34 and then we'll die?
I think as long as Japan is standing tall, we will see Final Fantasy keep going. I think it's just...
As long as Square Enix remains a company.
I think so. I think it is really, truly a staple. And I think it is... the last couple games, I've seen articles saying, like, sales aren't what they were expecting. But I do still think Final Fantasy is their main source of income for Square Enix. I could be wrong, but that just... It seems right.
Do you think Gen Z is playing Final Fantasy?
No. I think they're playing Fortnite.
So you have to figure that out. I think we talked about that in the last episode.
I will keep them alive. I will keep them alive.
All us old people that are playing single player games are going to die eventually.
Maybe we will see the end. Oh, no.
See?
Okay.
We could. Or we got to get Gen Z into playing single player games.
They won't, though.
They're not going to do it.
We can't convince them. I'm going to be like a Jehovah's Witness door to door. Like, have you heard of Final Fantasy?
Have you played The Last of Us, sir? Your brother was on a couple weeks ago and he was like, no, never play. I don't think he had ever played a single player game.
Dude, no.
Ever.
No.
Ever.
No.
Unless it was maybe some Mario, if you want to.
Kind of played Minecraft, but that's still online, I think.
Like, he's definitely never played a narrative-based anything.
No.
And unless, I don't know.
Oh, it's all over.
Just put Tifa into Fortnite. She might already be in there. I don't even know.
Probably. I feel like probably. Yeah. Gosh darn.
Hopefully it survives. Boy, we just bombed it right here today. Well, Final Fantasy, we love it, but it's probably going to be over
soon. It's going to die before we even see 17.
Gen Z can't shoot it in the face. build some stairs around it. Well, I'm going to finish Rebirth at some point. Go play Final Fantasy 16, according to everyone else and not Alyssa. Should be fun. It's really highly rated. I have no idea if anything is happening with 17. I don't think there's been any. I haven't heard anything anyway.
I would be on that.
Oh, and by the way, we did an interview, if you haven't checked that out, with the guys from Game Changers. That was super fun with Phil Morey, hosted an old Nickelodeon gaming TV show in the 90s. And then the director, Scott Barber, that was a really good time. We released that. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. We'll have some exciting things coming up that aren't Final Fantasy. What are we going to tackle next? We need to hit Kingdom Hearts still. I think we're going to do that soon. So maybe that's the next thing coming for you. Otherwise, it's been fun talking about Final Fantasy and its awesomeness. Alyssa.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.